All right, good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock. I'll call to order the July 18th meeting of the Canandaigua Town Board. This time, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rebecca, would you call the roll, please?
Councilwoman Karen.
Present.
Councilman Terry Connolly.
Present.
Councilwoman Evelyn Rudolph.
Present.
Supervisor Pearson.
Here. Rebecca, was the meeting properly advertised?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So one thing that we've been remiss in doing, and I have to apologize to everyone that we missed in the last few months. So because we missed your birthday, if we missed it, you get a free entrance into the transfer station. You can use it anytime. You can use it any Wednesday, Saturday, or Sunday. And they'll even help you with your stuff. That's a thank you. I'm sorry for missing your birthday. So we have the following birthdays in the month between now and the next board meeting. Lindsay Prairie, July 21st. Pat Venezia, July 21st. Kelly LaVoy, July 23rd. Paul Arndt, July 31st. Allie Hirschman, August 3rd. Andrew Perino, August 12th. And we wish all of them a very happy birthday. Communications are attached in the folder and also circulating. And will be available if you'd like to take a look at those. I'd also like to recognize guests from the Cheshire Volunteer Fire Department. Assemblyman Jeff Gallahan is with us tonight, as is our director of the watershed, Kevin Mulvaney. He is here as well. So welcome to our special guest. That takes us to our first privilege of the floor. If anyone would like to be heard, as a reminder, you have 3 minutes. And I will start the timer when you start. So we'll give you time up if you go up there. If you could state, we know you, but if you could state your name and address for the record, Linda.
Hi, I'm Linda Dworzak. I live at 3582 County Road 16. I had sent a letter to the town board on July 5th, and I was expecting to see it in the correspondence circulating, and I noticed it's not there, but I can kind of summarize what I was talking about. And I know the town board knows because I had some little emails with you guys, but I was disappointed to see the town advertising for a local political committee. I felt like it impugns the independence of the town. It makes it look like maybe one party maybe is running the town. And I feel like it's violating the town's own process where there's a fee schedule established for things that they're selling. And all of a sudden we're selling advertising. My third thought about it was the amount that we were selling it for seemed ridiculously low given the number of clicks that were being established by showing it for 4 months in our town newsletter. So I know you guys have heard or read my letter, and I wanted to bring it to the meeting because a couple of you had mentioned, let's talk privately. I'd rather talk on the record.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to be heard at this time? All right, Mr. Herrick Self, you could stay here. This is our town historian, Lee Herrick Self. You could share your
Certainly.
name and address as well.
My name is Lee Ferguson, and I reside at 624 500 Road. And I'm aware of what Mrs. Dvorak was referring to. It actually came to light in some communications within the town. I have to say, as a member of the Republican committee, I think it's much ado about nothing. It is not unusual for the town to accept a donation. I think Republicans and Democrats have always come together in our town. And I think the Republicans supporting arts in our park is kind of a good thing. And I would actually just simply say, I think the way to skin this cat is for the Democrats in town, our neighbors who have always joined. We've always worked together. Everybody in this town works together to join us. It's not a great deal of money. And I would say probably the best way to do that is if we all supported music in the park, and that we not get too bogged down in civic organizations supporting community efforts. And I think that's all I had to say on that subject. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, would anybody else like to be heard at this time? Okay.
Yvonne Chavez, 4400 Middle Cheshire Road, speaking as a town resident and taxpayer. Based on my understanding of Supervisor Simpson's presentation on potential land purchase on Westlake Road, it's been reported that 61% stated favorably to more lake access, but no reference as to how that percentage was arrived at. There were 2 previous town surveys resulting in 821 responses from an approximate town population of 11,289. 460 foot of lake frontage is intriguing, but full disclosure reveals only a southern portion of that can be used because of steep grades. Cutting existing guardrails would not be in compliance for safety along that side of Westlake Road. The price is to be determined by 2 appraisals, one by RSM, one by the town. But RSM will not allow a town appraiser access to the property unless the town enters into a purchasing agreement. RSM is asking the town board to enter into a purchasing agreement without knowing the final cost and impact to taxpayers. Agreement by the town board would certainly not be in the best interest of the taxpayer. Today's estimate, based on housing market and other factors, is $1,200,000 to $3 million plus range, requiring bonding the purchase, which will affect a tax increase to the town taxpayer. Other cost estimates to be considered, and I don't believe they have been, is cost for the existing home tear down or renovation, cost for installation of parking lot for 20 cars, cost of floating dock installation and maintenance to assist lake access and swimming. Floating docks are at a higher risk than a fixed dock. How vulnerable are they during lake storms or lake levels? How will they affect neighbors? Cost of installation and maintenance of lighting, if that would be considered for night visibility. Cost of maintenance and inspection for cracks and ability to handle storms. Cost of insurance, cost of enforcement of safety regulations, and hours of use. Another unknown is a completed trail from Westlake Road to Middle Cheshire Road is dependent on approval from Lakewood Meadows HOA, which is certainly not a sure thing. Town board members are elected to represent a majority of actual residents, not a dismal majority of those who respond to surveys. As town board member Terry Finelli commented, the final cost can be anything. Surely that would have a bearing on other needed projects in the town. At a time when the economy is in bad shape with gas costs at the pump skyrocketing and more to come, food prices, rent, home payments, interest rates, etc. In my humble opinion, this is not the time to spend an unknown amount of money within the price range mentioned. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Would anybody else like to be heard? Okay, now we'll move on to the presentation portion of our meeting. Our first presentation will be by the Cheshire Volunteer Fire Department. And is there a chat? Yes.
I had asked if anybody wanted to make a comment that they put something through chat so we could call on. That looks like Oksana's made a comment. Do you want to call on her?
Yeah, Oksana, would you like to share your comment?
She may not have all the agenda.
There has never been a discussion about donations. Each committee works through the budget process and the final budget is established for the events of a committee. So why do we need donations that have never been set as policy or even discussed in the public realm? From Oksana Fuller to everyone on the Zoom chat.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nadler. Twitter. All right, the time is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Rick Roxon. I'm president of the Cheshire Volunteer Fire Department. Joining me in representing the department tonight is Chris Brown, our chief, Crystal Martin, our treasurer, Bob Finger, our vice president, and Glenn Zimmerman, president of our board of directors. As you know, at the end of December, the existing 3-year contractual agreement running between the fire department and the town expires. As part of the negotiation process, we asked if we'd be permitted to make an opening statement. And it was offered by Doug Finch that we make that opening statement to the entire board this evening, and we thank you for the opportunity. Over the next 15 minutes or so, you'll hear from a variety of speakers laying out who we are, where we've been, where we see ourselves going, and how we plan to get there. The last 3 years has seen us go through an unprecedented pandemic, a surge in rising emergency calls, and most recently, and perhaps most concerning of all, we're experiencing rampant inflation, which is making budget planning and contractual negotiating challenging at best. Look forward to you enjoying the presentation. I'll be back up momentarily to speak with you. And next slide, please. And hope that you find our presentation informative and full of explanation. Thank you. I'll now turn to Bob Finger.
Good evening. Next slide, please, Doug. As Rick said, my name is Bob Finger. I've been a volunteer member of the Cheshire Volunteer Fire Department for 28 years, spent 14 of those years as president, and I'm the current vice president. So we'll go over the slide, which lays out the rest of this presentation. I'll go down line by line here, so keep the slide as it is, Doug. So driving this presentation is a dilemma of the increasing demands on fire and EMS services, both locally and nationally, and how CVSD is to date meeting these demands despite budgetary challenges. Proactive initiatives and results, slide 5, 6, and 7, presented by our Chief Chris Brown, briefly highlights CVFD's internal and external proactive activities and their results. CVFD is a 100% volunteer organization. Slide number 9, presented by our chief, shows that CVFD effectively saves the taxpayers roughly $2 million over a similarly staffed paid department. Our 10-year plan. Slide number 11, presented by our treasurer, Crystal Martin, outlines our long-term financial plan, which provides a roadmap for major expenditures such as apparatus, equipment, facilities maintenance, and beyond. Strategic plan. Slide 21, presented by our board chairman, Glenn Zimmerman, will show our long-term goals and objectives, compliance with OSHA and PESH, strong considerations with respect to the CPSM Fire and Operational Analysis Report. Closing comments. Slide number 22, presented by our chief, reinforces that CVFD, being a 100% volunteer organization, directly translates to excellent service at a direct savings to the taxpayer. And you can move to the next slide. Brief explanation of this slide. While public demands for fire and EMS increase, dollars available to support this demand have not. CVFD strives to fund efficient and effective services based on quality, using a business-like approach. We provide these services demanded of us while continuing to juggle the monies which support them. Thank you for your time. And I'll introduce Chief Chris Brown.
Thank you.
So just a little background on how we, elect our officers. So the chief officers are elected by the membership. And then, the first meeting after that happens, the chief officers get together and we, get the rest of the leadership team. So like the captains, lieutenants, the chiefs pick those. So I can, assure you all that you have the best leaders that we have in the department. The membership has chosen them, and then the chiefs have chosen the captains and lieutenants. The fleet repairs, we initiated the fleet repairs a couple of years ago. Our fleet was aging, it was neglected. And over the last couple of years, we've spent roughly $81,000, $81,000 plus dollars on getting our fleet back up to a safe and reliable fleet. We just recently took delivery of a new engine 431, which the cost of that plus tools was roughly about $800,000. Next slide, Doug. And this is our new engine 431. Kind of funny, it had to already go back for a recall, but we should have it back here next week. So I'm pretty excited about that. Next slide. Okay, so here I will talk about some of the proactive initiatives that we've had over the last couple of years. Last November, I think it was November, I had an idea. I said, let's put a survey out there to the membership. Let's see how we're doing. Let's see what they want, to see what we can do better. It's, I do a survey at my full-time job every quarter. So I get a lot of good feedback. So I said, let's do that for the membership. So we did that. Right now, the leadership team is fielding, the responses that we got from our membership, and hopefully we'll become better at what we do. Just a couple months ago, our treasurer Crystal said, well, how about we do that with the public? How about we do that with the community that we serve? So we're working on putting something together for the community to put out there to the community members, whether it's something that we respond to a call and we give a little postcard to, and they mail it back or whatever. So we're working on that. New membership, we continue to get new members. And honestly, I think this is a direct result of us being out there. We're out there. We just did a community event this past weekend over at the old Brookside. We had about 150 people out there. We've gotten a few members from us just being out there and them seeing us. And then we placed the rescue boat here in service a couple of years ago. I think that was 2020, I believe, is when we got that. It's the only rescue boat on Canandaigua Lake at this time. And obviously that is crucial for, water rescues. And then we also just put in place the Alpine Red MNX system, which tracks our calls, tracks our training, point system. We run off a point system. It can pretty much track everything that we do. And we had an older system that we needed to upgrade, and we got that. Next slide. That's
Thank you. 2 words: fire prevention. As Chief mentioned, yesterday we had a crew at Old Brookside spraying water. Seemed like a great idea on a day when I think the temps were in the high 80s, and it certainly was very well received. But at the same time that's occurring, we're always talking to kids, we're talking to seniors, whether it's the importance of having a fire plan, whether it is the importance of having working smoke detectors, how a fire extinguisher is used. We're at that constantly. And hardly a week goes by when a member or members of our fire department aren't out in the community or hosting people at either of our stations to further their education to not only prevent a fire, but in the event of one occurring, what to do and how to safely get out. And basic things that as adults we take for granted, such as calling 911, but actually vocalizing that with maybe some of the younger or older members of our community. So they're used to it. As you can see from that slide right there, those were taken at Ananda last summer. I believe it was a town camp. And as much as we enjoyed going down there and spraying water and giving the kids the opportunity to use a hose, and I was on the other side of that photograph and was getting wet, it's also an opportunity for us to train. And we take that seriously. Every time we take an engine out or the ladder truck, who's ever operating it is training. And it's just one of the unspoken benefits of being involved in the community, being visible and encouraging people to participate. Next slide, please. Okay. Chief.
Thanks. So as you can see from the numbers here, Chester Volunteer Fire Department, we have currently 50 active members. 30 of them are trained for firefighter level 1 or equivalent, and then 20 are trained to the firefighter 2 or equivalent. I wanted to point out here that 25 career firefighters would cost about $2.5 million. And that's what we get. That's what the town gets when we have a fire. All right. So like the Adams Drive fire, we had 28 firefighters at that fire. Cheshire alone did. And I really wanted to, point that out because it's a huge cost savings to the town taxpayers. And that's just the labor. That's labor benefits. That's not all of our equipment we need. That's not all the NFPA stuff that we have to keep up on. Just the savings for salaries and benefits. It's about $100,000 per firefighter if we were a career department. Next slide, Doug. So this is the Adams Road fire that we had just a couple of weeks ago. And again, I just wanted to point that out that in the middle of the day, we had 28 of our volunteers that dropped everything that they do to come help somebody that needed help. Crystal, I think you're up next.
So our current 10-year financial plan is another step toward becoming a very effective, efficient, and very professional organization, not just front office, but back office. Front office is firefighting, EMT, et cetera. We do a ton of training with that. But it's also important that we become very professional back office, and that's in the business area. Our 10-year plan includes planning for just-in-time replacement of apparatus, equipment, and facilities, and to stay focused on truly necessary spending, while following commonly accepted accounting practices, including a full financial audit, passing a full financial audit yearly. As a 501c, we don't have to do that. But our current income, including investments, only allows for spending in the future for our standard O&M items. It does not allow for accruals for our critical large ticket, big ticket items, apparatus, trucks, et cetera, like that. So 2 key facts, like you guys to remember, and that in our budget, 70% of our budget is for fire operations. And of that 70%, 60% of that is controlled by the NFPA. And what do I mean by that? The National Fire Protection Association, their guidelines and their mandates tell us when we have to buy something and the standards that we have to buy too. So that makes a huge difference in our budget. And Brady, we just wanted to show you one of our firefighters. So this is Brady Hackett. So the turnout gear that he's wearing, that's $4,500. The SCBA, the self-contained breathing apparatus that he has on his back, that's over $6,000. That's $10,500 right there for one firefighter. Next slide, please.
I want to point out, he's also scholarship.
Thanks, Brady. And this slide just points out a few typical replacement costs. We already mentioned that the new pumper tanker was $800,000. That was for the truck and the equipment. A new engine, $725,000. A ladder truck would be $1.4 million. Just the hoses for these trucks, $18,000. And those numbers do not include inflation. And up next.
Hello, I'm Glenn Zimmerman, board chair, relative newcomer to the Cheshire Volunteer Fire Department. I've been in the department just 3 years. My fire service history dates back a lot further than that. I've actually been in the volunteer fire service for 41 years, starting in my home state of Maine. And I also, during the course of my 41 years, I had the honor of serving on the National Fire Academy adjunct faculty for 6 years. So a little bit about my background and the context within which you'll hear my comments. When I first came to Cheshire just 3 years ago, I was very impressed that these folks have their act together. They know where they are, where they're going, and they know how they're going to get there. They are thinking plan. My upbringing, and especially in the fire service, has been planning. Prior planning prevents poor performance. If you don't know where you're going, you may wind up somewhere else. Famous Maine saying, if you don't know where you're going, you may wind up somewhere else. Well, when I first came to Cheshire, I was convinced that these folks know where they're going and they're not going to wind up somewhere else. And one of the ways to guarantee that is to have a strategic plan, which I'm honored to share with you. I'm not going to go into the detail on every element of it. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our mission, vision, values. In the document itself, which is 27 pages long, we have our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats outlined. And also in the plan, we have compiled what we call considerations. We've done our due diligence on what's going on in the community. How can we adapt the department to the current state of affairs, but also forthcoming changes? And we also look at department factors like our aging fleet. And last but not least, we put together 6 goals and initiatives, which will take us through the rest of this year and into part of next year. Next slide, please. This is our mission statement. This is our reason for being, why we're here. I won't read it to you, but if you look at the bottom, you'll see the symbols. We're here to provide emergency services for fire, medical, water, and environmental emergencies. Next slide, please. This is our vision. There are a number of different vision statements in our strategic plan, but these are the 3 most notable. Vision statement, by the way, is what you want to be when you grow up. We have an idea of what we want to be when we grow up. The first major point there is we want to exceed all of your expectations. The second major point is that we want to provide our team members with the skills, tools, and equipment to protect our community and to protect them. And last but not least is we want to maintain a respectful and compassionate environment among all our members. That is really key because in a volunteer organization, it's all about attraction, retention, and development. Attraction, retention, and development. And if you don't have an environment where people want to be, you're not going to have volunteers and you're not going to be able to retain them. So we spend a lot of time talking about that, thinking about that, and acting on that. Next slide, please. And then values. Of all the different things that are important to us, these few bubbled up as probably the top. Number 1, safety. Second, professionalism, then teamwork, integrity, excellence, as Rick alluded to earlier. It's all about excellence. We strive to be excellent in everything we do. And last but not least is camaraderie. That camaraderie is an element not only within the department, within the fire service. And on the right-hand side of this slide, this is the silent march on 911 last year. We are recognizing the brothers and sisters, 343 that we lost at 911. Next slide. Community considerations. We do a deep dive on a lot of different things in putting together our strategic plan. And these are just a few. We look at geography, areas with hydrants, areas without hydrants. We looked at our past growth. We look at future growth. And by the way, Doug was really helpful. We met with Doug a few weeks or a couple of months ago to ask what's coming down the pike. What do we need to know about the changes and the growth in this community so we can adapt our fire department to those changes. We look at things like the increase in motor vehicle traffic. We look at increase in building construction and the type of building construction. Next slide, please. Other community considerations, occupancies. Different building occupancies have different levels, high hazard, medium hazard, and low hazard. We look at the occupancies throughout the community. We look at our mutual aid agreements with our neighbors, both in terms of what they bring to us when we need help, but also what we bring to them. And last but not least, we look at our ISO fire ratings to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep all of our collective insurance rates, household insurance rates, as low as possible. Next slide. First and foremost, in terms of department considerations, our aging fleet. I won't go into a lot of detail, but suffice to say, we have some major expenditures forthcoming to keep our fleet current, and it's a major concern for us. Next slide. Other department considerations, growth of our membership. It's wonderful that we're able to attract so many volunteers. This organization has 50 active volunteers. Pretty rare. Trust me, it's pretty rare. But every time we have a new member come in, we have to outfit them, $10,000. So it's a good thing, but it's a challenge for us. We're also looking at advanced technology. One of our upcoming engines will most likely have a compressed air foam system on it. And that's a very leading edge technology where with the foam system, you can provide or you can realize 5 to 7 times the extinguishment power of straight water. Other things that we consider relative to our strategic plan, we look at our emergency response statistics. We look at our local, state, and federal government requirements, which are constantly changing. We have to be sure we're in compliance. And last but not least, we look at the fire operational analysis report, which was generated in July of 2018, which has a lot of very valuable information in it. Next slide. Okay. Out of all that, we came up with 6 major areas where we're going to, where we have initiatives for the rest of 22 and into 23, and perhaps beyond that. We have 4 different areas of health and safety, one of which I will point out to you, new firefighter orientation and onboarding. We realize that we have to do a better job when we're so lucky to have these new people come into our department. We've got to do a better job acclimating them to our department, training them, helping them learn our culture, how you do things. So that is a big priority under the umbrella of health and safety. And then, of course, we have our fleet management committee looking at our configuration. What's the proper mix of equipment to support the town now and in the future? We have a committee focused on community relations and recruiting. And then, of course, our standard operating guidelines and policy manual constantly need updating, and we've got to stay on top of that. And those are major initiatives. And last but not least, we have a committee that focuses solely on the fire operational and analysis report. So in summary, I hope you will agree with me. I don't think we're going to wind up somewhere else. I think we know where we're going. And with that, I'll pass it over to the chief.
Next slide. So closing comments, just, I mean, that's pretty much the presentation. Just wanted to reiterate that this is a 100% volunteer organization. We have firefighters, we have EMTs, we have special operation techs, we have ice water techs, rope rescue techs. I mean, we have it all. We're very diverse. We're very happy to be here. We continue to demonstrate that, Cheshire is adaptable and responsive, and we're, quality focused and business-like approach. So that ends the presentation. I thank you all for having us. We're going to hold comments just so we don't, screw up your agenda tonight. But there is a email that you can email any questions or comments to. It's info@cheshirevfd.com. And with that, I thank you all again.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, everyone, for your presentation. Thank you. And that's probably the information that you shared.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. All right. So now I promised Assemblyman Gallahan a little bit of time to do a legislative report for us. And I will forego my report so he can do his. He does not have a PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, I did bring one. Yeah. Doug, don't you have that?
Right here. It's in the cloud.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, Town Board, for having me here this evening. Many of you probably wondering why I attend town board meetings. The reason I attend town board meetings is because when I go to Albany, I want to represent my constituents here in 131st. And I need to have my finger on the pulse. I need to know what your wants and needs are. And I can't do that from my office in Geneva or from my office in Albany. So I try to get out and visit. I've tried to get out and visit every single town. And I've been to all but maybe 2 so far board meetings in the town and the towns that I represent. And that's the reason I do come out. I will, a politician with a microphone. So I know you have a large agenda this evening. So I'll give you the 30,000-foot view of what's been happening my last 2 sessions in Albany. Sessions, as you know, run from January to June. The first session was quite unique, something that has never been seen before in the state of New York. We had Zoom meetings. I call them the Partridge family, and very, very difficult for me. I don't care for the Zoom meetings. It was a necessary evil. And I prefer to be face to face in the room with people that I'm trying to legislate with and debate and create laws. So I went to Albany with an expectation of being able to meet many of my constituents or my not constituents, I'm sorry. Many of my colleagues down there. And unfortunately, last year, they only allowed 30 people in the chamber at a time. So there are 150 assembly people. There's at least on a normal day, 10 or 15 support staff and folks that are in there. So it was very limited. I made sure I was there every single day during session. I did not miss one day. I gave up my seat 3 times so that other Republicans could come in and debate. I was a little disappointed in the way that people were not properly dressed during the Zoom meetings, and we're not even in their home state of New York, many of them. But it was an unprecedented year. What else happened? Well, we lost the governor. Governor Cuomo resigned, something that hadn't taken place in 100 years. So now we have a new governor, an upstater. I was very excited about that. And hopefully she will help us out here upstate. But this year we started out the same way down in Albany, 30 people in the room. They relaxed that a little bit and let more people join the room in the session and in the Capitol building. And later in the year, they opened it up. Finally, they opened up the building to the people that own it, which would be you. You were shut out for over a year and a half, which is very disappointing to me. There should have been accessibility to that building for the people that own it. So this year is different. I met many of my constituents down there. I did it again. I met many of my colleagues down there, and from across the aisle, from my own conference. And, we accomplished many great things. We did accomplish something that I'm not really proud of, which was a $220 billion budget. And it's the largest in the state's history. It is larger than Florida and Texas combined. It's rampant spending, and I think we need to reel that in. I think we need to be fiscally more responsible, and we need to handle the people's money in a much more efficient manner than what we're doing currently. So with all that being said, I'd just like you to know that representing you here in the 131st is an honor and a privilege that I take very seriously. My office is always open to anyone that has a concern, a complaint, or a comment, or an accolade. I like those too occasionally, but I just want you to know that I'm here. I want to know what's going on in the town of Canandaigua, and I'd like to stay in tune so that I can represent you properly in Albany and get you the attention that we need upstate, and let people know that, you know what, we're a force to be reckoned with upstate. We have needs and wants that are different than downstate. I could go into that for about 15 minutes. I didn't realize really the differences. I didn't want to believe the differences when I went there. And we're trying to bring both sides together. We're trying to take the right and the left and bring them to the middle. We've done different things. A few of us have done different things down there. I'll give you one example, and then I'll close. But the month of March is Maple Month in New York, and we decided that I have a catering business with my wife and a food trailer, and we do a lot of food business around the Ontario, Wayne, and Yates counties, and some in Seneca. And we came up with an idea to feed the entire assembly conference, 150 people, a pancake breakfast featuring New York maple syrup. And we did that. We got the permission from the speaker. He allowed us to do it. We set up in the lounge, and we fed every single assembly person that was down there, and their staff came down, and it did our hearts good to see Republicans and Democrats and independents and everybody in that room eating, talking, smiling, and getting along. So we're making a concerted effort. Many of us that there was 11 of us on the Republican side and 13 on the Democratic side that were new last year. And we're trying to make a difference. We're trying to bring people together and trying to change things in Albany. Hopefully it works. We'll see. But the key to getting to someone's the heart is through their stomach. So thank you for your time this evening. I appreciate it very much. I know you have a large agenda, and I'm excited to sit down and see the public hearings and listen to what people have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Kevin Mulvaney, you're up. So Kevin has a presentation regarding our first public hearing. So he's going to present some thoughts and overview on that property.
I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I was gonna make some comments.
And he came back.
Usually I come with a presentation, but
He came back from the Outer Banks to do this.
That's right.
So I mean, he was coming back anyway, but
with 3 or 4 lacrosse tournaments in between. So yeah. No. I guess, the theme that I would want to put out there on a project that in a landscape that I had a lot of support for and do still, that shoreline piece, 485 feet of shoreline and some of that upland component. But I think the theme we always have to think about, especially in this day of age, is balance, and balance with finite resources and having to make choices. And this has been one project that in the beginning, we were able to get an existing grant fund to be able to allocate a large sum of money, about $350,000 out of that existing grant fund to support the town of Canandaigua in their endeavors to work with the developer and potentially purchasing that critical piece of land. 485 feet of shoreline does not come along very often along this tremendous 36 miles of shoreline, especially in the northern third of the lake, especially a forested landscape like this. So it has a lot of great qualities that conceptually make a lot of sense to see what we can do about protecting it for the common good, that public benefit piece of it. But things have evolved. Things have evolved, as we all know, and Supervisor Simpson did a great job presenting that evolution, especially from a partnership perspective and maybe and also from a financial perspective, where that price tag, I think, was somewhere in that $1 million range when we were originally talking about it a year and a half ago, to now upwards of potentially $3 million. And we have to think about, what does that mean for the town? I'm a town resident as well. And we have to balance things out and look at what's the best bang for the buck to protect Canandaigua Lake, protect these common resources. So when I look at these things, and we always have to prioritize, triage where we can spend public money, where we can build partnerships. With Jim, a lot of times, doing a lot of the projects that we do together, we really try to figure out what's going to have the most bang for the buck, the best public benefit. And quite honestly, I think this one has gotten out of balance from my perspective, looking at this and looking at projects across the landscape. I think we have a developer at this point, and things may change, that is not real interested, only if it's at the right price. And maybe I'm speaking a little out of turn, but I feel like we've been, quite honestly, dealing with this one for quite some time, quite honestly, over a decade in some ways, and then where we are at now. Hopefully things will change there, and hopefully, there's potential where maybe, if we can increase the revenue side of the equation, or if we can get to a more of a reasonable cost, this, in my opinion, would be a wise use of public resources. But I look at this and I think about, there's many opportunities, I would say, in the conceptual stage, but there's many opportunities that abound across our landscape here in the town of Canandaigua, and then thinking geographically watershed wide, where we can do a lot of great things to reduce the nutrient load, the sediment load, the bacteria load going into Canandaigua Lake. And I balance that out with the thought of, public access. This landscape, we always knew, and the grant that we were going to use to help support this was not really about public access. It was about source water protection. We looked at trying to protect that northern 400 feet of the shoreline, saying, hey, we've got, a forested landscape, very rare in the northern third of the lake like this. If we can protect that, that is a really good thing. From a fishing perspective, someone on the lake, boating perspective, being able to pull up to a shoreline and having a riparian corridor, littoral zone that is unimpeded by dock systems, you name it. But I think, the way things are working, when you look at that landscape, and the southern end of this, I think, the comments that came before me, there is potential for very limited access as you look at it. That could be an access for a water trail location. And then the upland, there are constraints as to what you can do from a parking perspective, how many folks from the public could use it. So I always looked at it, the priority to me was limited public access, and then protecting that landscape to the north. What I think will transpire when you look at the zoning regulations, site plan review, potential, when you look at a 20-foot drop, you've got guardrail along there for very good reasons.
there's a high likelihood through good zoning and good planning that that landscape will stay intact. So I think we're achieving that in many ways. It would be great to have that permanently protected from a public perspective, and having, when you look at 97% of our shoreline is privately owned, getting another piece of the puzzle along that shoreline would be great. But when we look at the full scale of that aspect and the limitations of that property, where we're at from my perspective, and we're always triaging this thing, I think we're out of balance. I do think we're going to be coming back forward on conversations with Supervisor Simpson, with Doug, with Jim, about opportunities, about projects, about landscapes, riparian corridors, about more stormwater management efforts, water quality basins, wetland protection. There is going to be a lot of those I think we're going to be bringing forward to you when you look at the resources, the financial resources this town has, and always looking for grant opportunities to help supplement the local dollars towards that. So those are my comments on this. I've been involved in this project to a certain extent. You guys are the decision makers on this. My job is to provide, best technical advice and assistance. From my perspective, that's where I think this project is at right now, is my recommendation to you, but you guys are the decision makers. So with that, I don't know if this is the true public hearing, if you want to allow questions, however you want to work that.
We'll open the public hearing,
Okay.
and then we'll have time for questions.
Okay.
If some get framed towards you, then don't leave. You're
Yeah,
not
fair
up.
enough.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. All right. So this brings us to our public hearings. Now, one thing we're going to do a little bit differently in consultation with Mr. Nadler, our town attorney. We do not need to vote to open a public hearing, as they have been advertised and been put on the agenda. So we will forego that. So it's going to be a little bit different. If there is a motion to extend a public hearing to continue it, then that would be a discussion at the closing. So it wouldn't just be closed without any discussion of the board. So that might look a little bit different tonight to those of you who have been to other board meetings in the past. All right, our first public hearing on the potential purchase of land on Canandaigua Lake, 3950 County Road 16, for the purpose of providing recreational opportunities and public lakefront access. And this pertains to resolution 2022-193. At this time, I declare the public hearing open. And if anyone would like to be heard, now is their opportunity. Mr. Westbrook.
Thank you, Supervisor Simpson. Kevin and I have talked about this project for a while also. And, I salute his work, the commitment you've made to this community. Thank you very much for that commitment. Here's my envelopes for you.
Right.
Show them around, right? Before I go too far on this one, I do want to call out our special guest, Jeff Gallahan, Assemblyman Jeff Gallahan. I had two opportunities. I actually had three opportunities to have his office called upon. One of them was with a landscaping company in Manchester. One of them was a grow area of marijuana in Bristol. And in both cases, Jeff really stepped up and came to the table instantly. So I applaud you for that. I'm a little disappointed though, Jeff. You didn't introduce your core staff. Okay. So the core staff, Alexis, thank you for all you've done. You continue to do. I have a personal story with her. We were trying to get my daughter's husband into the country during COVID and without all the complete documentation. So he's Hungarian with her, and they both traveled from, this is really weird. They were living in Beirut, Lebanon. And during COVID, they got on Qatar Airlines to get back to the United States in June or July of 2021. Alexis was extremely helpful in that process to make sure when he got to the New York City entry point, he was treated properly, which he was. There was no fanfare or anything, but he got through, and we were worried about that for a long time, especially because my daughter was pregnant. So to have that separation at that time would not have been a good thing for my wife. Let me just leave it to all the factors, but thank you for your assistance. I greatly appreciate it. I really do. And Jeff, I'll call you on that again if you don't do it the next time. Okay. And then there's going back to the 3950 park.
I believe there is adequate money available as identified here. And the 335,000 DEC grant, I believe, is still available. Hasn't been removed from anything I've seen at all yet. The Parks and Rec Fund, 250, that was agreed upon or allocated in January of 21, 700,000 from Open Space Fund. The interesting numbers are the next few numbers. Unassigned fund balance currently with the town is 2.7 million, as calculated by Doug Finch today. We have 1.2 million in ARPA funds. And we have an ongoing pursuit of both private and public sources that is aggressively being executed on by parts of this board, parts of the staff. And I look forward to that conversation, hopefully can become a more powerful conversation with real monies involved. So the total, not counting the outside private or public additional activity, is 5.185 million. And I don't think I'm that far off from the total numbers. I want to talk about, put some comments around, some context around this. 33 years ago, in April, I believe, the town board under Jim Holden's leadership acquired Campananda. And they got, for $2.6 million, they got $2 million support from the state. The town of Canandaigua came up with $600,000 at the time. And as I say all along, that was a defining moment for Canandaigua. And I believe we can have a similar defining moment looking forward on this opportunity. It's not Campananda, it's not Titchener, we recognize that. But availability of 480 feet, whatever the number is, I think is worth having a conversation about. And that's what we're going to try to have today. So I want to reference back to over 30 years of comprehensive plans, updated comprehensive plans. Those have been a top two, and most of the time, the top one issue for the public in the town of Canandaigua has been lake access. Go back and look at the comprehensive plans. You'll see it demonstrated there. I'm not going to cite the sources, but trust me, when the comprehensive plans are put forward, they should be regarded as the needs and the wants from the community. And I think the boards and the comprehensive team that put those together over this 30-year period did due diligence on that activity. And I believe it's a true statement. Lake access is mission critical for the people that do not have lake access. And I'll stop there. There's another number up there, which is the ARPA money, 1.2 million. And I've had conversations with everybody except for Karen on this matter. And but there's a spirit behind ARPA. The spirit is help lift up this community. The ARPA money was provided from the feds to the state, to the county, all through the county, then to us. And it's a chunk of change. And I would say that there are roughly, don't pin me on a number, but roughly 4,000 homes in Canandaigua as we speak here tonight. And there's one proposal that's being talked about. Nothing's locked down yet, but they're talking about spending that full amount of $1.2 million on for roughly 100 homes on Emerson and County Road 28. The board's having that conversation. I've had that conversation with board members, so it's no surprises here. And that meets part of the spirit, but with putting it towards this or sharing it with this project, that means those 400,000 homes, there'll be 4,000 people, not 400,000, 4,000 homes and 4,000 families that can enjoy the asset of the lake that they can't enjoy today. So I offer that as a thinker, okay? And the spirit of that money is what I really want to drive home. The spirit is to uplift the community. And I believe that to uplift the community, the more people that are included in that community statement, the greater the uplift. It's just a mathematical equation for me, okay? So I really strongly believe that. And finally, you know, I want to thank the board. I want to thank the staff under Doug's leadership. And I know you guys have looked at this very seriously. And, you know, I'm hopeful tonight that we'll get this laid over to give ourselves a little more time to explore what other opportunities may be down the road still. Because nothing's ever done until it's done, as I tell people. So I just ask you to consider that as a friendly comment to make sure that we want to make sure that we take this to the end before we give up on it. And I feel very strongly that we need to do that as a community, as a board, you need to do it. And I think I'm looking for that support from you folks tonight as we go forward. Thank you very much. Greg Westbrook, 4096 on Linda Drive.
Thank you, Greg.
Yep.
There is that Lynn? Okay, all right, Lynn, you have a comment that you'd like to share? So the floor is now yours.
Great, thank you. Again, I'd like to thank the board for the work they do, you do, and for giving the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Association an opportunity to weigh in on this. The letter that we sent from the Board of Directors to Supervisor Simpson and Manager Finch is, as I quote, "The Canandaigua Lake Watershed Association would like to offer our support for the town of Canandaigua's efforts to further explore, the purchase of the RSM property at 3950 Westlake Road. The mission of CLWA is to inspire the entire watershed community to become better stewards of Canandaigua Lake through education, scientific research, and advocating sound public policy. By engaging all stakeholders, we strive to preserve, protect, and restore the lake and its watershed for current and future generations. We applaud the town's efforts to actively seek new ways to help protect the lake and watershed that our community relies on, not only for its incredible recreational and aesthetic value, but also for the protection of our drinking water source. CLWA supports the town's vision for the preservation of open space and has also endorsed the 2014 comprehensive update of the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Management Plan, which cites that, quote, open space is disproportionately important for water quality, providing benefits such as flood protection, increased infiltration, water filtering, and reduced erosion, end quote, found on page 51. This land acquisition opportunity is in concert with the overall open space preservation goals of our community. In addition, this parcel would offer the rare opportunity to add much needed and often cited desire for public access to Canandaigua Lake while protecting the natural state of an undeveloped shoreline. CLWA looks forward to working with our partners, municipalities, the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Council, the Finger Lakes Land Trust, and other nonprofits on coordinated strategic approaches for additional protections to water quality and public access. We encourage all municipalities to consider making similar efforts to that of the town of Canandaigua. Sincerely, myself, Lynn Klotz, and our association director, Lindsay McMillan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so we have Marion. She next in line. Yep,
Can you
Marion.
can you hear me?
We can hear you. The floor is yours.
Okay, I wasn't going to comment on this, but I would like to make a couple comments after hearing Greg. I have no problem with, and I agree with, protecting the lake shore and that portion of this. My problem, and that would be a much less cost. My problem is with the purchase option that was written very poorly. Number one, there is no cap on the purchase option. So we've got an unknown price. You get two appraisals and it's there's some caveats in there, but basically if they're within 10%, you take the average of the two and that's what we're going to pay. We have no idea what the appraisal would come in. So and there's no cap on it. So it could be 1 million, unlikely, could be 3 million, very likely, but we have no idea. The other problem with it is that there are 3 parcels, and the 3 parcels are the lake frontage, the house, and the land that's on, and then a 20-foot strip that goes up to Lakewood Meadows. I have a major problem with the strip that goes up to Lakewood Meadows. The RSM property and Lakewood Meadows both have conservation easements on their property that one abuts the other. And we do not need to purchase that 20-foot strip of valuable land that's going up through there because the two homeowner developments, the HOAs for the two associations could just decide they've got to make trails anyway in their conservation easements. Just connect their two trails there and they've got it all the way up and down. The other thing is that if the Lakewood Meadows people are not willing to put a parking lot up at the top, which I doubt that they are, for the general public to use it, then it's basically that part of the purchase, that 20-foot strip all the way down, is for Lakewood Meadows. And it's not doing anything for the rest of the public. So I have a significant problem with that. If things change and we can subdivide, those three properties cannot be handled separately right now because of the way the purchase offer or the purchase option, it was written. So it's all three or nothing. And I really have a problem with that. I have a problem with what the price is going to be. We have a general theme going tonight that prices are going up on everything. And that's my opinion on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Linda, would you like to be heard?
I would like to be heard.
All right.
So I'm Linda Dworzak. I still live at 3582 County Road
You haven't moved in
16.
the last
Hasn't
10
moved.
minutes. Good.
And I'm here to speak in favor of the park. I was on the town board when this idea came about, and I recognize that one of the reasons why the appraisal agreement exists is because the town isn't able to purchase things the same way an individual can. So that is a complicating factor for how the town buys property. But also as a former town board member and the finance chair, I'm aware that we have a lot of reserves in the town, which is taxpayer money that we've accumulated by being thrifty and doing good things. But we've also been dinged by our auditors a few times for not taking that money and doing something worthwhile. And I really believe that parks are really a gift to the future generations. We don't have a park today where we look back and say, boy, we're sorry we have that park. And personally, I live on the lake. I know how expensive lake property is, but the appraisal process is surprisingly accurate. Last time we had this opportunity on Titchener Point, we had many people going, oh my goodness, the town is considering paying $5 million for this property. It's not worth $5 million. Surprisingly, the appraisal process that gave us that number came very close to what the people paid for the property. So I believe the appraisal process does work. There is a risk that it could be higher than what we're thinking, but there's also a real opportunity here for us to preserve some beautiful shoreline, to have potentially in the future sometime a floating dock, something like that. But it really is, it will be a gift to the community.
Thank you. All right, anybody else in that?
I'm Jody Kaufman. I live at 5140 Sage Terrace in Waterford Point. And I was chatting with a neighbor the other day, and I was rather startled when she mentioned that she can see bison through the trees in her backyard. She lives on the south end of the Morel development off of Middle Cheshire. Our neighborhood recently petitioned the town to buy this parcel to preserve the woods and develop a nature center. The board failed to take advantage of the relatively low price tag of under $1 million. The developer who bought the parcel is now bulldozing down trees for what I imagine will be grazing land for his bisons. We also missed an opportunity to purchase Titchener Point, and yes, that carried a hefty price tag of $5 million. Now, the Johnson property is one of our last chances to preserve a piece of the lakeshore and prevent further development. And we didn't buy it at $1 million. But now the possible $2 to $3 million doesn't sound unreasonable compared to what we've already lost. Let's not turn another town parcel into a home where the buffalo roam. Thank you.
Thank you. Pretty poetic. Great, now I'm gonna have that in my mind the whole time. Thanks, Jody.
Sure.
Now I'm humming that. You're out of order, Mr. Okay. I'll read this. So this is from Oksana. Every town board's political campaign material stated that they are proactive to protecting the lake. This is an opportunity for exactly that, protecting the lake, whether protecting the natural resource of this parcel and having public access. Does anyone want another mini marina there next to German Brothers? I don't think so. Okay, thank you, Oksana. Go ahead, you're up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So my name is Mary Kay Mans and I reside at 3896 Chatham Lane. And probably compared to the many people in this room, I'm a relatively new resident of Canandaigua. I've been here about 9 years. But in that short period of time, I've really grown to love this lake. And I recognize what a jewel it is. And from the time I've been here and the opportunities I've had to use the lake, I'm constantly dismayed, disappointed at the very little amount of public access. And I think somebody earlier tonight talked about the fact that about 97% of the lake is privately owned. And that is an opportunity right now, even if it is only with 485 more feet, to make some of that lake available to the public. And I know that the people who own pieces of property on the lake, I recognize they often share it. They have friends and family, but the great majority of the taxpayers, and probably the taxpayers who are paying a higher percentage of their income than the people who own the private property on the lake, don't have access or enough access to this lake. So I ask and implore the board to please consider 3950, the purchase of, so that there is in fact more opportunity for the rest of the public. And I would like to say also thank you for the service on the board. I know this is a lot of work, so I appreciate that as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Karen.
You're not surprised, are you? It wouldn't be a town board meeting without Karen Parkers.
I'm Karen Parkers and I live on Laura Lane. And I moved to Canandaigua in 1972, 50 years ago, and moved to Laura Lane in 1973. And I remember the old Westlake Schoolhouse, which really wasn't anything to write home about back then. However, if any of you know Laura Lane, it had a plethora of children on it. Children had bicycles. Middle Cheshire Road had no traffic basically. And there was like a runway from Laura Lane to the Westlake Road Schoolhouse beach, which wasn't really a beach. It was a place where kids jumped into the lake. It belonged to the town. So it was legal for them to jump in the lake. And when, as a mother, when I said, you know, go jump in the lake, they were there. I'm not saying that kids can go down to this piece of property on Westlake Road that we're talking about if their mother says go jump in. I don't think mothers do that anymore. You know, they just, someone goes play in the street or something like that. But it's another piece of property that has the potential for people to use it. And look at Camp Onondaga, all these years it's taken to make it what it is. And I will tell you, on Saturday, I went past the Westlake Road Schoolhouse and someone had rented the schoolhouse and had a party. There had to be 50 cars there, at least 50 cars. It was in use. I would have never dreamed that 50 years ago. And like right now, I can't even picture that. right next to Sager, not Sager.
German.
German Brothers Marina. But it has the potential because with that property, you're buying parking space across the street. You might someday have the same type of situation as you have at the corner of Butler Road and Westlake Road. And I want to tell you, that's a dangerous situation. So it could be the same type of situation down there by German Brothers Marina. But it still gives you the same opportunities. And I don't think we should pass up an opportunity like this if it's within the realm that we can handle it.
Thank you very much. Oh, we're looking online. Okay, Ashley, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you so much for having this option for us to appear virtually. It provides good access for myself and I'm sure many others who can't get out there. So thanks so much. I just wanted to weigh in briefly. I and my husband own the largest parcel abutting the proposed park. And so we talked about it last night. We wanted to come out strongly in favor of this park. I know that in Titchener, there was a little bit of a NIMBY sentiment. And I want you to know that, you know, for the largest abutting parcel to this proposed park, you will not find any NIMBY sentiment from us. We are super excited about the idea of increasing public access to the lake. I think that, you know, I just wanted to address, and I didn't catch his name, but there was a gentleman who spoke prior to opening the public comment section, who I'm sure works for the town. That's what I gathered. And I want to sort of reject the false choice between protecting our watershed and providing public access. I think we have the talent and the intelligence inside of our town to be able to do both. I believe in the skills of the people who are running this town. And I know that we can achieve both things. I think it was Karen who just spoke. I absolutely will tell my kids to go jump in the lake. And they, you know, along with, I'm sure, just tons of their friends and the whole community would be really excited about this opportunity. So I just, as a person whose, you know, life would be directly impacted by this, I want to come out strongly in favor. And I'll look forward to being a part of any future conversations. And I thank you so much to the board for your time in considering this option.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard at this time? Clear? Looks like we're clear there. Anyone else in the house? Okay, if there is no objection from the board, I would like to close the public hearing.
I'm wondering if we should continue it to next month.
Thoughts?
Close it.
Okay.
I don't see a need to continue. We've got a lot of input, plenty to work with.
I feel like a lot of people only recently learned of this when they saw the town board agenda. And depending on what we do later in this meeting, this topic may not be closed this month. So I feel like it might make sense to continue the public hearing, and then if no further comments are received, we can close it then.
We can also, I'm hearing two who are in favor of closing. I think, in my opinion, we have the thoughts and comments from a year and a half ago. We had exhaustive comments from multiple public hearings. We also have, we can still receive letters and emails from residents regarding this. So I don't see the need to continue it. I don't know that that would change the thought or the presentation going forward. So if there's anyone who, and if anyone here knows of people who were not able to attend or contribute or share their thoughts, any emails read will be shared. Any emails will be disseminated And that information will get out there to the board members. Okay. All right, so we have 3 in favor of closing and 1 in favor of continuing. And so
Somebody should make a motion to close.
Second.
all in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, all right, public hearing is closed.
I mean, that's just usually my advice, if there's a dispute or discussion.
All right, and thank you everyone for your comments on that matter. And as was mentioned, it will come up later on in the meeting. The next public hearing is a public hearing on a local law to override the tax levy limit established in general municipal law, and this pertains to tonight's resolution number 2022-189. And at this time, I declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone who would like to be heard?
Mr. Supervisor, if I could, just since we have a state representative in the audience to take the opportunity. The tax levy limit that is imposed by the tax cap includes all special districts. And in the town of Canandaigua, it's the largest number of special districts of any municipality in Ontario County. The town of Canandaigua operates 28 special districts. These special districts are services that the residents of the town of Canandaigua have requested, and then they contribute to provide that service, whether it's lighting districts, drainage districts, water districts, etc. The state formula for the tax levy limit includes the levying of all those special districts. So when a resident or a group of residents ask for new services, we have to then levy that. That then goes against our tax cap, and there's a good chance we're not tax cap compliant operating 28 special districts. So would certainly also put a plug in to continue to ask the state legislature to exempt special districts from the tax cap. Did
you write that down?
Yeah.
Probably not the first time you've heard that.
As a supervisor for 11 years.
Yeah, so you understand the drill. So with this, and again, is there anyone who would like to be heard online or in person? So with the by overriding this, by voting to override the tax cap, it gives us the flexibility in case we need to. If we do not vote to override the tax cap, and then at the end of the day, it comes back and we need to, then we are in serious trouble with the state for doing that. But if we vote to override it, and then we don't need to override it, which is always the goal, then all we have to do is rescind this and vote not to override the tax cap, and then we'll be tax cap compliant. But it is always touchy with special districts and entities. I mean, you heard the presentation from the fire district, everything else adds into that process. All right, any comments from any board members? Okay. Any objection to closing the public hearing at this time? All right, so this time I declare this public hearing closed. Takes us to the next public hearing on allowing the expenditure of open space funds for land acquisition, and this pertains to resolution 2022-192. And I declare this public hearing open. And just for clarification, this is the property that we had already discussed, that we had to, this is Seneca Point Road, that we had that quickly on, and this is just following through with that part of the process. Going through the legalities and through the steps that we need to. So is there anyone who would like to be heard on this? The amount, okay, yes, the amount not to exceed 80,000 for the purchase. There is a chat, has that been checked out yet?
Relative, I believe, for the first.
Okay. All right, anybody else would like to be heard? Anybody from the board?
At this moment, to let you know that I heard from John Harris, the seller's attorney, figured out all the title issues, ordered an abstract and survey, and we should be able to close.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you. This is my estimation.
In case anybody, that is the property next to McJanet that connects us to the Vista, the Finger Lakes Vista, if you cross. And it gets us closer to someday, hopefully connecting through to Ananda. and then have a hiking trail up throughout that area. So that's the ultimate goal. But this gets us closer to that. All right, hearing no objections, I now declare this public hearing closed. Okay, next public hearing. On a local law to amend the town code, chapter 4, agricultural advisory committee, with the intent to resolve discrepancies between the existing code language and the existing membership as appointed by the town board. This pertains to resolution 2022-201. And at this time, I declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone who would like to be heard? Any board members who would like to be heard?
I'm gonna make a motion for a small change when we get to it.
Okay. All right. Okay, without objection, I now declare this public hearing closed. Okay. Made it through a little bit of change with only one hiccup. Thank you, Mr. Nadler. That's right. That's right.
But wait, there's more.
I felt eyeballs on me. So. Okay, we have one more public hearing. Public hearing on a local law to amend the town code, chapter 174, subdivision of land, chapter 220 zoning, and chapter 1 section definition, section 17 definitions. And this is resolution 2022-202. At this time, I declare the public hearing open. Invite anyone who would like to be heard at this time. Mr. Westbrook.
I'm walking slow tonight because I have an 8mm kidney stone that's trying to get out. And I'm not letting it out until August 2nd. Okay, so I'm actually sweating now. So, my simple request is to gain a deeper understanding of the intention of this public hearing and the change. And I'm going to use myself as an example. I live at 4096 Onalinda Drive. Because I have relationships with most of the board members and other people in this room, I was made aware of a pending change. And I made a decision, my wife and I made a decision to take our remaining parcel of roughly 14 acres and split it into a 10-acre and 2 acres, knowing that this was coming down the road. And my question really to the board, and I'm not sure if it's going to be answered by you guys or not, but my question really is, if I had not done that, what would my journey be like after this becomes law? So I'd like to understand the impact. And I'm just one example. I live on a street that has roughly 19 homes and lots on it, on a private drive. And if this was not caught by myself and my wife, what would that process look like? I think it's important to understand that process, because sometimes processes get ahead of a problem. And I'm not saying there's not problems. There are problems. I accept that. But I'm concerned about one answer to a very complex situation. I had asked for, have not yet received, the number of private drives that are located in Canandaigua. I think it's some number between 50 and 100 private drives. I think the lot numbers associated with such are from 2 to 22. And that's a different model, right? And people that invested in this community, such as myself, my wife, we need to know what the rules are. And when they get changed midstream, and it's not public to people that I talked to over this past weekend, that means that, is there another way to do that better? Okay. And I just ask us to use me as an example. Somebody can tell me, hopefully from the board, of what would happen to me if I had not filed my subdivision application prior to July 1, 2022. I'll step down for a minute and come back up if I need to. Okay.
So one thing that I should probably add, and I can waive the rules when we get to that point. When we get to the item, the resolution, then that will open us up to more discussion, and then we can answer that question. And then if you have more questions, I'll waive the rules and I will allow you to continue that since we're kind of changing the order of that. No, maybe I'll only give you 3 minutes then. Maybe I'll say something. Now, we gotta be nice. Where's that? Where's that? Anybody else like to be heard on that? Mr. Novak.
Thank you. My name's Gregory Novak. And I'm in a similar situation in that I don't have a lot of information. It's been recently brought to my attention. I live on a private drive where there are a number of other lots over the 25 years that I've lived here. When I first moved in, there were 6 properties there. Over the last 25 years, those lots have been subdivided a number of times to the economic benefit of the owners of those lots, where there's now 11 properties. And those owners benefited substantially by those subdivisions. I am now the proud owner of the largest lot in that subdivision by a substantial measure. In fact, in many cases, 2 times larger than the majority of my neighbors. I have within the original deed restrictions of my property written in the right to subdivide my lot. And even as little as when I first moved in, I was the only home on 155 acres in a bankrupt development. I took a substantial risk of moving in. I paid to plow a private road for years on my own, and took a substantial risk. It was 12 years till the first people moved in to where I lived. And 12 years later, people subdivided 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those lots into properties that are half of my size. Earlier this year, a real estate agent came up and knocked on my door and said, how much property do you own? And by the way, I was mowing the lawn on a walk behind mower, which I do to keep in shape. And I told him 7 acres. And he said, what are you doing with 7 acres? I said, I have no idea. My kids live in Boston. And he said, would you like to sell some acreage? I'd like to sell the whole damn thing if you could get me out of here. And I said, what can you sell? He said, what would you sell? I'm like, whatever you take with you. And he put a sign up. And then someone, shockingly, it was very strange because people have been putting up for sale signs at the bottom of our hill for 25 years. And all of a sudden, I get a note from the town that the for sale sign at the bottom hill is illegal. I don't know who called, but all of a sudden someone doesn't want me to put a for sale sign on. Oh yeah, don't look at me that way. You can. I think it's Kevin who let me know. Can't have a for sale sign at the bottom of the hill anymore. All of a sudden, someone doesn't want me to benefit economically from the sale of my property. So I really haven't had time to deal with it and figure out the 19 hoops I got to jump through to put a for sale sign at the bottom of the hill. Don't care that much. Don't feel like putting up with the aggravation if you want to know the truth, right? But I get a telephone call that says somewhere in the town we're putting through a rule that says I can't sell off 3 acres of the lawn that I currently mow, right? The deer eat the bushes. And I'm like, we're talking about what? So yeah, I'd love to know what rule we're putting in that the land I've been holding on for 25 years, that if I plopped another house on, right, I all of a sudden can't develop it, which certainly doesn't put any more needs on the town of Canandaigua, given that there's a road and a water problem. And we've allowed developers to put, I mean, let's be honest, we sold a piece of property that a developer sold that had the damn pond on it. Okay. And we know how much trouble that caused all of us and the town. And now you're gonna tell me I can't sell property? Guys, you better come up with something better. So let me know what we're up to. I'd appreciate. And by the way, if this isn't what's going on, that's great. Just let me know. Tell me what's going on. I'm happy to go away. Thanks.
Thanks, Greg.
Because I'm here.
Still same address? Same name, same address.
Same address, still the same person.
See above.
I just wanted to share my experience with living on a private drive, only because I think sometimes when you're not aware that people who live on a private drive pay to plow, maintain, mow the edges of the road. It's an expensive proposition to live on a private drive. It's not, on top of it, the taxes that you're paying at the same rate as everyone else who's getting the plowing right in front of your house. You don't get that. And so the situation with changing the rules for people who live on them, it felt to me like all of those people should be getting a little letter from the town. And I read the resolution and I was not clear really what was going on. And I felt like I was pretty savvy at reading these things. So I just think in this particular one, there either needs to be more PR or something, because it stands to reason that people who don't know what's happening could find out later, and then you're going to have pitchforks and nasty things.
Thank you. All right, at this time, is there anyone else who would like to be heard? Not seeing any action online. Any board members like to comment? Any objection to closing the public hearing at this time? All right. So this time I declare the public hearing closed. And thank you all for your comments. Okay. Now the quick part is over with. Takes us to our reports of town officials and department heads. Jim.
You just want the board to know the actions that have been taken over the past 2.5, 3 years. That water booster station tanks really paid off the past couple of weeks. If we were still using West Street, I would be telling people not to water their yards, less water here, less water there, because we were hammering through water about to the 1.8 million. We did 2.2 one day, million gallons of water. And we did it with one pump, and we have 2 extra when we need it. So the actions we've taken 3 years ago for conditions like this have made our community stronger and resilient to not be able to provide water where it's needed in the town.
Excellent. Good. That's great news. Thank you for sharing that. I do not see our assessor. Leave slide back there. Give a historian's report for us.
So I had an article that came out early in the month. I hope you all enjoyed it. It was, dealt with some of our past history regarding infrastructure. Some of the things that Jim's very early predecessors would have managed. There will be another article probably in the August. I'm not sure if it'll be the Daily Messenger or the Finger Lakes Times. I'm trying to spread them out now because everybody takes a different paper. But the one thing I just want to add before I step down is that when the fire department was here, it was one of those thoughts that I had. Why didn't I do that in the article? I was just so impressed with their presentation and the fact that they're an integral part of the infrastructure of our town. And much of my article had to deal with infrastructure. And so many of you here are dealing with infrastructure in one fashion or another. And the article kind of revolved around infrastructure and good governance. And so I want to say that the thing that was really impressive was watching them, but also this entire meeting, as much as it's been long, it is one of just a shining example of a community that functions the way all communities should. I mean, we've got people here from 2 different levels of government. We've got concerned citizens. We've got people who have themselves held elected office here in town. We've got, county staff and town staff, and it's all here, and this is great. The only thing I would ask is a town historian, my role is all in, I'm like kind of like the sizzle. There's no steak here. But what I would say is when you look around this room, I can tell you that I don't know about this young lady over here in the mask, but we have 2 people in this room who are under the age of 35. This is tremendous, but there's only a couple of people here that really are young. And that is one thing I would ask every one of you to do is get your kids, your grandkids. We need more young citizens in this room doing what Greg and Karen were doing and what Yvonne was doing. They need to be hearing from Jeff, and they need to be hearing from Supervisor Simpson. So as the historian, that's just my thought and my plug for the evening. Please drag people in here and get them involved. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you very much. Town clerk, Rebecca, do you have any reports?
Nope.
Okay. That's a quick no. Shauna, I think I saw you out there.
I'm here. I have nothing else to report.
Okay, thank you. Not see Lindsay. Doug, do you have anything in addition?
Just a report other than attached to my report is a issue relative to a resident with a water question that actually at the end of this meeting under other business, we can discuss that.
Okay, remind me. My financial reports are in the agenda packet. One thing that I would like to share from the county level, an interesting discussion. You might see this coming out in the news. People might be reporting on it, but in full transparency with what discussions we have had at that level, the County Board of Supervisors has had discussion, and tentatively, the committee is not, Ways and Means has not voted on it yet, but they took input from the board. We voted to not waive the gasoline tax at this point in time. There are multiple reasons around that. One of them being we have 2 throughway rest stops within the town of Canandaigua. And not the town, Ontario County. I wish we had them in the town of Canandaigua. We have 2 throughway rest stops in the Ontario County area. We have 4 exits within the Ontario County area. And the volume of gasoline sales that those contribute to our tax base is pretty significant. And by foregoing the gas tax from now until the end of the year, the fear is that that money, if it's not taken, would be, we'd have to recoup that somewhere else, potentially through sales tax, property taxes, or it would fall back on the municipalities. So that was the logic behind that. We had a lengthy discussion about it. It was not unanimous, but the decision was just to hold off on that for right now. And just for perspective, from June to December, for the town of Canandaigua, and this is including going up to like a $4 to $5 cap in the gas prices, which we're coming back down again. But the estimate from the financial department of the county was $292,000 in sales tax revenue that would come back to the town through this gasoline sales tax. So that revenue would be foregone. And that's significant to a lot of the smaller municipalities. And also the sales tax distribution rates. And Assembly Gallahan, if you have anything to chime in with this and correct me if I'm wrong, the distribution of sales tax has not been, they found that it has been disproportionate for downstate areas, believe it or not, that other areas were getting more than what they were supposed to as compared to what downstate areas were getting. So potentially the state could come back to counties and say, we need X amount of dollars back because we overpaid you your sales tax for this period of time. So that's another thing that we're taking into consideration with this. So yeah, there are a lot of interesting things and interesting discussions, and it's not always as black and white as it might seem. But that's just a little update from what's going on at the county level. Okay, reports of committees, boards, and commissions. I do not have anything to add from finance, except we are getting into the budgeting process. We will be having a budget workshop coming up in a month or so. Karen, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
Okay. Terry, Planning and Public Works.
Yeah, a couple of things. I did our finance committee meeting last week. I brought you up to date on what was discussed at our last meeting, but there are a couple of things here. But since we are in the budgeting season, several months ago, we had somebody come in and put on a presentation regarding testing ACP pipe, asbestos concrete pipe, which is in our town, we have how many miles? 50 miles of pipe. ACP pipe over time, if it's in an area where the pH is acidic, can get kind of punky and soft on the outside. It corrodes from the outside in rather inside out. So this company has a technique that looked very intriguing. And we finally got some information back from them. And the question was whether we go ahead. It was rather expensive testing. It's like $20,000 a day to do 1,000 feet of pipe. Of course, with 50 miles, we're not going to do 50 miles of pipe. But to get an idea of what this technology could provide us, and with Jim's experience in areas where we do have issues, it might be wise to budget for next year, taking a 3-day look, 3,000 feet. The price is $75,000 total. So when Jim hands that in, Doug, that's where it's coming from. So we do have a lot of pipe. ACP has been in the ground 50, 60 years. So we really don't know what it's like until it goes like this up through the ground. You don't know what's going on down there. And there are areas that are hot, that have pH issues. So it might be a good idea to explore this technology and see what it could, bring to us. So another thing, Canandaigua Farmington Water District, we received a study report in June from MRB looking at the uptown area and what the water demand is going to be there in the future. And it reinforced the need to replace the big water tank on Brickyard Road. Farmington had come in with a proposal earlier this year and asking us to approve it so they could proceed with this project. It's a $13 million project, up from $9 million 3 years ago when it was first proposed. It's been looked at over the years, and it never really come to the point of here's a plan. So we're going to have to get back into it, and this affects people in the pretty much north of 5 and 20. A lot of us are south of 5 and 20 in consolidated water district. So, but we have to send a letter of intent. Somehow that letter's got to come from you, Jared, I think, to Farmington to Pete. And then they will have MRB go back out and rebid the project so that they can begin to put the plan together again. So
The letter of intent would say, we're in.
we're in. Just that. The project has to be rebid because I don't understand all the rules, but you can't take the same bid back in and apply for, well, there's a lot of WIA money in it. $3.5 million of water infrastructure improvement act money. So anyway, that we have to get on that. We also have to take another look at the IMG, the intermunicipal arrangement we have with Farmington. That really has expired like, what, 30 years ago?
Just
We
about.
need some updating.
And the last, as I recall, we left it that we would wait until we got this report from MRB, which I haven't seen yet. And then maybe 3 of us or whoever should sit down and talk about what should go in it. And I could draft something up to present to the board. That makes sense.
Oh, yeah. There's another piece of this too, that when MRB was looking at the potential water usage going forward with the uptown development, it will put the city water treatment plant very close to what their maximum daily average is, which is 6 million gallons a day. They can have excursions above 6 million, but the long-term average has to be 6 million gallons. Right now, they're running around 4.5 million. And it had been as high as what, 8 or 9, you said, but it has to be at 6, and that's negotiated with DEC, I guess. But if this 1 million to 1.5 million, we're talking about for future development up there, going to put them right at 6 million. So at some point, somebody's got to open some negotiation here on what we do going forward. It's a city treatment plant, so they would be the lead person, or lead agency. But we don't want to lose sight of it because that development will be starting and it will grow. That's it.
All right. Thank you very much, Terry. Ordinance, John?
I don't have anything to mention.
And then economic development, Oksana, do you have anything to add?
No, it's just microphone.
Okay. Well, if you see something jump up there, it's good job.
Oksana hasn't had any internet for 2 weeks. She's going stir crazy. I talked to her this afternoon. She did. She's
No internet.
What do you do without the internet?
No address.
Okay, planning, Chuck, do you have any report for us tonight?
Nothing else to add, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I do not see ZBA. Adeline?
Yes, I just have a quick update from the ECB. We have a great committee and we are planning to spend some of our existing 22 budget to address some goals that were written for 2022 by the former facilitator, Jared Simpson and Shauna. So we're working with our highway superintendent, Jim Fletcher, to book a date for an environmental fair this fall, sometime in October, likely at the Highway Garage, if that works. And we'd like to bring in several presenters on rain barrels, composting, lake-friendly farming, lake-friendly lawn care, possibly bring in some outside groups and speakers as well. We're just in the very early stages of planning, so.
CIC, Shauna, do you have anything?
I do not.
Thank you. Do not see Mark. I'll assume Oksana's no for special events. Linda, do you have anything for special events to report? Put me on the spot.
We are working on the Halloween at Onondaga. That's, the next big event, and just at the preliminary stages of seeing which community partners are still interested and trying to provide some new and unique things. We have a new committee member who is actually a certified clown. So we're
Jared, would you apply for that?
Oh, we're a lot of
be a
hats.
fun
And
addition to the day to maybe have her do, or maybe magic or something. So that's what's going on.
Okay, thank you. I think you misheard what she said. She didn't say certifiable. She just said certified. I do not see Chairperson DeCarlo nor Karen, Cemetery Committee.
Yes, we've met twice and visited 7 cemeteries. We met with Peter Ellison, who contracts with us to conserve and restore headstones. There is a resolution on this evening's agenda to appoint Mary Schneider to fill a vacancy on the committee.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, takes us to our next privilege of the floor. Is there anyone who would like to be heard? Marion, we see what we got you.
Hi, got me on?
Yes.
Okay, so I've been noticing a theme not only in this meeting, but everywhere you go, anything you do these days, the theme is costs are going up. And today we talked about the largest state budget ever, higher costs for the fire department. Unfortunately, our assessor wasn't here to address assessments going up, but costs are going up on everything. One of the things that I noticed on my water bill is that my water bill, I use probably the base cost, the minimum base cost that we have went up 13%. Nobody mentioned it was happening or that was going to happen. Didn't happen with the first of the year because it happened between the 2 quarters. And it wasn't the water usage because in the first quarter that I got for this year, I used 5,000 gallons, and for the most recent quarter, I used 1,000 gallons, and still my bill went up 13%. So everything's going up for everybody, and all combined, it makes it worse. What doesn't go up is senior citizens' savings that they're living off of. And what I'd like to have happen is I'd like to have the town board have a discussion about increasing the senior citizen exemption. Each of the entities, the town, the county, and the school district get to set separate limits. So Jared, I would like you to talk to the county about increasing the amount for senior citizens. And I'd like the town board to talk about increasing the amount for senior citizens for the exemption. Because they're the ones who are getting hurt by the inflation the most. Their salaries aren't going up. They don't have salaries anymore. And if Social Security goes up, that counts against them. And each time that happens, you kick more people out of the lower limit that you've got. So you need to increase the amount of the exemption for property tax in the town, and the amount, Jared, you need to take to the county to increase that amount. Thank you.
Turn this off before it moves off. All right, is there anyone else who would like to be heard?
I would.
Okay. Oh, right.
Wow, that really did stick with you.
It stuck with you.
Yeah. I love drama. I want to circle back to what Linda was talking about at the beginning of the meeting. And we were talking about the ad that was placed by the Republican Party, donated $300 to the parks sponsorship for the summer. And I was just curious about our honorable historian making a comment about, you know, we should all get along, and we should. I'm a town Democrat. And just so you know, our committee was offered to place an ad in the sponsorship after it had already been, the poster had already been published in the town, on the town newsletter. So, we would have appreciated been given equal opportunity to place an ad. That said, $300 for our committee would be a lot of campaign signs if we had somebody to buy a campaign sign. But so I just would please ask, we'd love to work with you, but we'd like to be included. And Mr. Gallagher has inspired me talking about his pancake breakfast, reminding us that we have Democrats and independents as well as Republicans in the town of Canandaigua. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard? Seeing no one online or in person? I will now. Yep, Greg.
Would you be coming back to us on what this new
So-
rule is? How do we
so-
learn about that
So
stuff?
typical, so what happens with the public hearings and with privilege of the floor? It's a chance for residents to voice concerns. It's not, the way it's set up and structured, it's not a question and answer session. But I can tell you that when we get to the resolutions, there's a time for the board discussion where there will be some discussion, and we can then have discussion and kind of hit your points
Okay.
when we talk about the resolution as it comes forward.
Okay, that's coming up, or that's?
That'll be tonight. Yep, that'll be tonight. Get my glass. Just get my paper adjusted so I can read it. Get my head adjusted so I can read it too. Okay, resolution number 187, acceptance of the monthly financial reports.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 188, acknowledgement and authorization of budget transfers by town manager.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 189, adoption of a local law to override the tax levy limit.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries.
That's local law 5.
Number 5. Thank you.
I just didn't know when you wanted me to speak up for it.
Oh, anytime. Resolution number 190, authorizing highway fund budget adjustment, accepting revised 284 agreement for the expenditure of 2022 highway monies.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Carries. Resolution number 191. Authorization to create budget for capital project Track Outhouse Park West improvement expenditures.
So moved.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Doug, did you want to just explain where we are in this phasing process here?
Sure. So the construction of the actual playground, Motion Junction at House Park West is really phase 1. Phase 2 begins the construction of the pavilion. I'm sorry, with the restrooms. Phase 3 has some improvements to the entrance. Phase 4 would be improvements of the sports field with plans for the site. And phase 5 would be the construction of the 4-season building if that were to in fact happen. Essentially, a lot of these phases, phase 1 had a huge donation component to it. Phase 2 for the pavilion is actually, I'm sorry, I'm just going to scroll here. I'm doing 2 things at once. There. I'm just going to scroll to the final section, which kind of outlines this. Phase 2 has $250,000 in contributions from the town of Canada, with $100,000 of that already being done for electrical and utility improvements running underground. The pavilion itself to be completely constructed through donations. And then phase 3, 4, and 5 has some out components over the next 3 to 5 years. So this really sets up the budget for the project and for the build out. But a lot of this is dependent on things like the revenue sources, including grants or donations, et cetera, for this.
So we are not voting to spend this money, we're voting to create a budget of what things cost.
And then the budget is dependent on the revenue, obviously. You can't spend.
All right, any other discussion? Thank you for that explanation. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Like 7 pages long, so it's going to take a minute to get
It's
to.
very
the end.
long resolution. Didn't you say it's the longest one you ever wrote?
All right, found the end. Resolution 192, approving the expenditure of open space funds for land acquisition.
Sounds good.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just want to make it clear, I spoke to the fabulous Kate in the budget office, and she had indicated that the current balance of that fund on the 14th was $1,354,648 and change. Just so folks are aware that that's where we're grabbing the up to $70,000
From the open space funds.
from the open space fund.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 193, directing town manager to execute the purchase option for 3950 County Road 16.
So moved. Gotta get it out there.
We had to get it out there.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Who wants to start this one?
Okay, so with this, so I'll jump in with this one. I would like to table this vote indefinitely, giving us the opportunity to explore other options, other funding scenarios, other entities that might be able to get involved and help with the process and make it come to fruition, probably in a way better than if we were to go ahead and purchase it on our own, then we might be able to do. So with that, I would like to table it indefinitely. No, the table that I voted, if we didn't, so that will, now, just so everybody's clear, we have until September.
Oh, I'm
Motion
sorry.
to table indefinitely, so we will need to vote on that. Just because we have until September, the end of September, so we have 2 more board meetings between now and then to make that decision on the property. Sometimes things move slowly, so we need to be aware of that. It might necessitate, and I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, but it could necessitate a special board meeting if things happen, depending on when they come together, to be able to make and act on this resolution. Okay, so any other discussion? All right, all in favor of tabling indefinitely?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I will second.
Karen was a second. So we will come back. We will come back to this and it will come back up again. So rest assured, your comments were heard on that. Everybody's feelings, in favor of and against were heard. And we are continuing to do due diligence and see what we can do and what we can come up with.
I'd just like to make a note that since we closed the public hearing on it, the public is still allowed to speak to the privilege of the floor.
Yes, yes, you can speak privilege of the floor. If you would like to speak publicly, you can send us comments if you'd like to send things individually. But so there are still more opportunities to comment between now and then. Thank you for bringing that up. Resolution 194, letter of credit for Centerpoint Apartments Phase 3, the retreat at Centerpoint LLC.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 195, acknowledging financial transactions relating to the Office of Town Court.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Resolution 196, surety release to Craig and Carolyn Wink, 6100 Grimble Road.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution 197, appointment of part-time clerk to the town justice.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 198, creation of the tree sponsorship program.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Third.
Moved and seconded and thirded. Any discussion?
I'd just like to thank Dennis Brewer and Mark McNeil for their letters supporting the program and Lindsay for administering.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 199, amendments to the 2022 fee schedule.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I had a quick question. I noticed in there the genealogy search, the sliding scale fee, it stops at 70 years. Is there a reason for that? Or
That's just how New York State put it to
Okay.
us. It's just 70 plus, so anything over 70 will be the same
would be
price.
the same amount? Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 200, accepting dual assets proposal for third-party administration services relative to community choice aggregation and authorization for the town manager to execute agreement.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
In the agreement, there's I guess it's the first year, there's a significant, however you look at it, cost, like almost $16,000. That's I would think a one-time, John, I mean, it's for going out to the public with, scheduling meetings and printing materials to send out.
Yeah, that's probably too. Ron is here, who's administering the grant for us. Is that in the grant?
And so there will be no cost to the town, and so we will have a meeting set up with them to get all the specifics, but there will be no cost to the town is what they had written in that full piece that Sarah and I went over. I did attend the city committee meeting that we were told about with the CFO who presented there as well just last week, and so that all seemed in order of what they were saying.
There is I think there was an annual To me, they have an administrative fee of thousands of a cent per kilowatt hour. That they would be charging. It's sort of an annual. It wasn't much, it was a couple $1,000, something like that, but there's really no cost to the town to get into it. But there are, those other costs are, it's confusing when you read it, to me. Anyway.
I just want to also mention that Manager Finch had said during our finance committee meeting that currently about, I think it's 92% of our energy is from renewable sources.
I think I said that.
Was that you?
Western New York, 92% of about 92% of our energy comes from renewable sources.
I thought that was very.
So we are pretty. Were you?
Are you counting Niagara Falls?
It's a big water.
It's renewable. Yeah. Hasn't run out yet. Yeah.
It's only
If
10,000.
we take out Niagara Falls, all bets are off. But we have a significant amount in this area. Over
Yeah. Sorry, I thought that was. I thought that was really interesting.
Any further discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, carries. Resolution 201, seeker determination of non-significance and adoption of local law to amend the town code chapter 4 agricultural advisory committee to revise the membership requirements of the agricultural advisory committee.
So move.
Second.
And I know there will be some discussion on this.
Yes, I really appreciate that the Ag Committee noticed that their membership was not in agreement with what was in the code. And I'm glad they observed that discrepancy and are fixing it. I did go to the Ag Committee meeting last week and discuss with them a little bit further. I just had a concern that the resolution as written indicates a minimum of 5 members. It doesn't give an actual number of members on the committee. In further discussions with the Ag Committee, it sounds like they would be happy with declaring a number of 7 total members. But their biggest concern was if they had 6 members or 7 members, if they would not have a quorum. So in some discussions with our town attorney, he had indicated that we could declare their quorum at 3 members, I believe. So I'd like to offer a motion to amend the resolution to include a 7-member board.
My recommendation is that you
Okay.
make a motion to amend the local law by adding a section 4-3 subparagraph B1.
A1, 4.3A1.
Or A has to be changed, a minimum of 5 members. So you've got a series of changes. You might want to do this, but it'll be a lot more clean.
Table it.
The changes and bring it back.
Should we
Okay.
table it till next month to the next board meeting? With those changes, Chris, you're comfortable with what you are proposing to
Yeah,
change
the
to
email
that?
I sent on the quorum, I'm comfortable with.
Okay.
And then
So we can make those changes and adjust the other numbers as where they're gonna fit in letters. So
And I-
everything lines up.
Did get a note from the committee chairman, Bob DiCarlo, who said he appreciated
So we
that.
approve. Okay.
That's-
Approves of that. Okay.
Second, member, you also got to lay it over.
So I make a motion to lay over the resolution to
Okay.
our August meeting.
So it's laid over until August. All right, resolution 201, seeker determination. Oh, I didn't check that one off. Okay. Resolution 202, seeker determination of non-significance and adoption of local law to amend town code, chapter 174, chapter 220, and chapter 1 through 17, relating to subdivision of land, zoning, and associated definitions.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion on this matter?
I just have a question of what we're trying to achieve with this. Are we trying to ensure we don't have private drives in the future? Are we trying to change current private drive regulations? I think we had a lot of discussions about number of properties that could be a major minor subdivision, et cetera. But I don't think we ever, at least I wasn't part to a greater conversation of what the goal was here. And I also think there's a lot in this resolution. I know Manager Finch had indicated that a lot of it is simply change one thing, you've got to change several other things down the line. But I any part of this we can break up. There are parts that I agree with and parts that I think require a lot further discussion.
So I think, John, to put you on the spot for a second, as chair of the ordinance committee, can you give a little bit of background? Mr. Nadler, can you give background? Can you give pre-back?
Pick up the narrative and then.
Pre-back background? Okay.
But it was unclear, the status of private drives right of way, a little unclear in the town code. It came before the zoning board, planning board numerous times, I think. On staff.
I don't think they can.
Yeah, I don't think they can hear you.
Now I'm gonna talk loud. I think it was unclear in town code. It came before the planning board and zoning board multiple times. The issue of whether houses on private drives were something that was allowed or not allowed or limited in our town code. So I think town staff picked up that issue and said, we gotta clarify this. And then the ordinance committee went further with that and said, let's regulate it. Let's not eliminate it. Let's allow it up to a certain amount with planning board approval. Is that a fair assessment, John?
Yes.
So how does this affect current properties and future properties? I guess that's, obviously, we have a lot of pre-existing non-conforming properties, so.
So we have, so as written, anything over 3 would be a major, technically a major subdivision. And would then trigger the law. Anything under 3, and I know discussions that I had with people was anything under 3 still allows someone to, if you have a chunk of land, to be able to divide it up with kids and have a little family homestead, which people like to do, to be able to hand that off, across generations. The questions that were brought up or something I think we need to discuss is what happens to these existing applications. What happens to the Greg's applications, Greg and Greg, with that, if you have an existing parcel and existing property, how does that fit within this?
So Councilmember Lewis specifically asked about the development. Nothing happens. Because this is for subdivision. So this has no bearing whatsoever on any parcel that's on a private drive. Even if you want to do a lot line adjustment or anything else, it has zero impact on it. It's if you're going to create a new lot, like in subdivision on a private drive, that if it is 4 parcels or greater, that it has the impact on it.
Could you repeat that?
Sure. So if you have an existing, say you have a property on a private drive and you want to make a development application, site development application to build a house on that parcel to the town of Canandaigua, this law doesn't pertain. It doesn't even come into play. This law is specific to subdivision. So if you have 2 parcels and you want to change the sizes of the parcel and you want to do a lot line adjustment, this law doesn't pertain. But if you are along a private drive and you have a parcel and you want to create a new parcel because you're creating a subdivision, that's where this would come into play. So if you have 3 parcels on a private drive already and you're creating the 4th, this would say that you either have to bring that right of way up to town standards, or you would need a variance.
Just spend a little bit on what the town standard is.
So it depends really to the planning board, but essentially that could be pretty significant in bringing the roadway up to a public right of way.
Significantly.
Sure.
Significant.
Quite expensive with
And not
depth.
possible.
Well, it just wouldn't.
Yeah, and some of these areas you can't do that.
And so the question that I would have is, you said, when it becomes a subdivision, I don't understand when something becomes a subdivision and when it doesn't. So we've crossed, into, I don't know, is my neighborhood a subdivision?
No, it's not, it's the creation of a new parcel. It's, you would be subdividing a lot and creating a new parcel. That's when this would come into play. An existing subdivision that's already approved, that has existing lots that have been approved, whether that's conservation subdivision or whatever the case, that wouldn't apply. It would be, you're trying to create a new parcel along a private road, that's when this applies.
So in that case, it would go to the ZBA, and then they would make a determination. You would have to apply, which would create another hoop. That hoop you have to jump through to be able to apply to the zoning board before that could be subdivided off.
Now, in Mr. Novak's case, I'm not sure.
That's
I'd have
the
to
gray area,
look at
that's-
it, because he's in a subdivision that may already have approved lots.
Right.
We'd have to
And that's also the gray area too. It's that it's not as cut and dry as, you know.
We have to look at it. case by
Right.
case.
So that would go to the ZBA, and they have the authority to do that. But if you already have, like Doug was saying, if you already have those lots divided up, if those are already been approved, then maybe you don't have to worry about that.
Well, I mean, certainly the lot that my house is on
Yes.
has already been approved. But if I take that lot and slice off 3 acres of it,
But years ago, it could have been approved for 2 houses up in that area, potentially.
I don't know whether the town approved it for 2.
Right, and that's what we'd have
or
to
the
find out.
homeowners association approved it
Right.
for 2.
What is
Linda?
the benefit to the town of making this change? I was trying to figure out by looking at it, like, how does the town benefit from saying you have, the private drives have to now lay on more asphalt and have more turnaround, and there's no
Safety,
room
yeah.
in these cases.
I think some of the discussion stems from the fact that there are a lot of people who live on private drives who don't know when they move there that they live on private drives. You have the villas and other subdivisions that are complaining all the time that their road doesn't get plowed. They have to pay for plowing, they have to pay for all these other things, yet they have to pay taxes to the town. And then you have to explain to them, well, when it was created as a private drive. And then they say, well, what would it take? Like, well, all this in the front of your yard, that would be gone because the road would have to be widened. So it creates confusion for one thing. In this attempts to clarify it going forward down the road, to remove some of that confusion that we're now dealing with after years of these parcels being created.
One might argue that confusion is increased by the passage of this activity. One might argue.
Yes.
I offer that.
It goes back though to my original question. So are
What's the
we,
purpose?
are we attempting to change future developments and avoid future private drives? Or are we attempting to somehow address the existing private drives that are not meeting code? My understanding is that we're trying to avoid compounding the problem and avoid doing this again in the future. But my concern is that we're somehow penalizing existing homeowners in a quest to do that.
I think that's incredibly insightful, Mr. Rolfe. But if you think about this quite simply, what you say is all of the current ones are exempt because you're not going to improve anything. Those folks who live on private drives, right, or complaining about their road, you're not going to fix that with a new ordinance. They're either going to decide to fix their road and turn the road over to the town. I've had these discussions for 25 years with Jim's predecessor. I know the bill for turning our road over to the town. Here's what land that has to be given up. Here's the turnaround that has to be done. Here's the $100,000 that has to be spent. It's been discussed with the neighbors 1,000 times. The neighbors have all agreed. We don't want the town to own the road. We plow the road, we've decided, okay? No one in my neighborhood except save one wants the town to have the road. We like the private road. If someone over the hill wants the town to plow the road, they can decide to go ahead and do that. You exempt all the private roads from this ordinance, and you put a rule in from this moment forward that says, no one ever does a private road again. You're done. Stop it. Now, if you got somebody with a parcel, you're gonna economically disadvantage them. If we've had the same conversation before, if I were a farmer and I wanted to develop my property, I think you can reasonably make an argument that it causes a hardship to the town and so forth and so on.
Could you say that again? Sorry.
What'd
What'd you say?
I got it for Father's Day.
Yeah. Which of the kids gave that to you?
Exactly where it came from. But I think that, I mean, I think you're causing a tremendous amount of consternation for folks. Like I said, I've lived there in the same spot. And now you're gonna ask me to wonder whether or not I'm gonna be impacted by that after all. And I mean, it's like 20 minutes after I put up the sign to split my property in half, right? I mean, I just really don't want to mow it anymore, to tell the truth. I understand why you would go that path. But you might want to back us up and rethink about this, about what you were trying to do in the first place.
So having heard input, anything else from the board? And chime in, I'm not gonna make the motion quite yet, but kind of thinking out loud here, if we lay it over, can we take a chance to look at it and figure it out and see if we can clarify some of these things and go back and tweak a little bit and take into account those new developments, those existing landowners with existing parcels. That might be, that not might, but would be, hearing your concerns would be the best situation and protect us going forward from having this issue, and also protect you going forward from the uncertainty of where things are. So that is kind of my intent at this time, looking for any thoughts or feedback.
So you're laying over 1 month?
So we would lay it over a month.
Can I address that?
Yes.
We have set the agenda for the next ordinance committee meeting this morning. And I'm not going to be available for the upcoming meeting. And that would push us off 2 months, and I don't know if this is
so
immediately
right
to address, so I'd
Okay.
appreciate if we delayed it potentially
for 2 months. So that would give us time for Mr. Nadler to go back and look and even research, and whoever research and look at other example situations and clarify and clear up some of these areas of concern in the ordinance.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So reading it, it's, obviously I'm an attorney, it's clear to me what this is doing. Does the board wish to issue more specific direction to the town manager, the ordinance committee, and the town attorney about maybe how many houses you want to allow on a private drive, or any restriction at all? Because it sounds like you have a
Well, I think-
substantive, not a procedural issue.
We already did.
I think the numbers,
3 and 4.
the numbers are okay.
Okay.
The numbers were from discussion and chime in, the numbers are, we're comfortable with those numbers of 3 and 4.
Okay.
As a board.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
I'm
So I
just
think-
concerned about how it impacts.
Right, the pre-existing, right, the pre-existing.
Okay.
Would you exempt all current private drives?
That's a discussion we need to have.
That's it.
That's much more in depth, because then even if you're gonna base it on the existing parcels, so then who's inventorying the parcels and how are we gonna manage that inventory? So it's a lot more substantive than just saying, brings back to the draft.
Right.
And
Linda?
I was thinking that the private drive people, if they're not kind of notified of this change, the existing people today, you would stand to have a bunch of people really kind of ticked off that they didn't get the kind of consideration that you get when somebody's going before the planning board or whatever, just a little bit of notice on it. But if you're not impacting them, if you're grandfathering some of them, then you have a lot less people to notify.
Direct town staff to try and determine where our private drives and private driveways are.
2 days.
No, this isn't it. So, no, yeah, and it's a changing, evolving, right? Kevin's
Question, to me, when I hear this, I haven't read the ordinance yet, so I'm not, but when I think about it, it seems like the remedy in terms of saying you must upgrade the roadway to a public road. And I mean, that one just, I think for Anna Linda, it ain't happening, you know, there's some others. So maybe it's the remedy that you're calling out saying, all right, if you're gonna subdivide, because we definitely, when we do plan reviews and stuff, we see sort of the kind of the death by 1,000 knives, if you will, you know, of issues on private roads where where's the common plan of development? Where's the stormwater management? You know, where can emergency services, which is not my purview, can they get in there? It's those things that I think maybe it's, instead of using the sledgehammer saying it must get upgraded, maybe you must show how you're going to be able to achieve these things.
Kevin, I used an example
Yeah.
of that. When we brought a hydrant in off of Riley's Run for our houses up on the hill. And it's an example of remediation that was expensive to ourselves, but worthwhile in our view. And as long as that spirit remains, it's a fair thing to do. I would also strongly recommend, my past life has taught me how to get 3 or 4 situations, scenarios, right? And take them all the way to the ground and understand the impact to that community. Because I don't think I'm exaggerating. There will be measurable impact. And, you know, and if they start coming that way, then you start talking different languages. You have attorney to attorney talks. So I just want to try to avoid that.
I had one last thought. I think a lot of times the developers cheap out on these things. They make it a private drive so they don't have to put the infrastructure in. And as you say, then you've got these residents who are going, hey, we're not getting the good services that the town provides to everyone else. And so I applaud you for thinking about going forward, saying, hey, none of these big private drives that are a nuisance for the people who live there. They have to have HOA, they have to have a group monitoring and doing the road and all of these things. Right, and people don't want to run the HOA. It's you have to have it, it's very complicated. So I think that I am in favor of saying going forward, that if a private drive has more than 4 houses, it's not a private drive. But I'm not in favor of penalizing the people who didn't realize what they were getting into already. And I no longer live out like, but I'm just,
Couldn't you find when the private drive was built? I mean, rather than defining this street, this street, this street, this street, could we say if the private drive was built before a particular date?
oh gosh, Cheshire Glen alone.
That could be.
Because Anna Linda probably was a path and
There
then
was a
what
path.
when you define.
First
as a
moved up there in
road.
1988.
Yeah.
It
But
was
I
a
mean-
dirt road.
Before X date, is that something we could do?
Anything
No,
you do,
that's not-
anything you
yes,
do,
separation.
you have 20 private drives, is that what you said about?
Oh.
50 to 100. I bet Jim's got a good idea.
These people deserve to have a communication from the town, telling them what you intend to do, how you're going to do
That's
it,
why-
and what they can do.
That's why if this happens and it's adjusted, then that wouldn't be an issue. If we set it up going forward. Greg.
I really support everyone that are said and what Mr. Vince said. I mean, I haven't seen anything in writing. The words might matter, right? If what Mr. Vince said was, if it's this and the definition of a development is this, and then that makes you exempt, the words really do matter, right? If you already live in a development because there's 11 houses and you subdivide a parcel, then you're exempt, then maybe 75% of the properties naturally go away. So the words really will matter if there's a draft. We haven't ever had a draft to look at, and we don't quite know what some of those definitions mean. So we're kind of poking at a black box here and potentially overreacting. It'll be important that what matters, like Greg said, because you have to be able to dig down to, and how's it going to impact 1,000 different people, right? And how might they, because once it hits economics and people's ability to either have to pay or not be able to, get what they had planned for, It's ugly pretty quick.
Right.
And no one wants or needs that kind of thing.
You just sounded like you wanted to say something.
There is a draft that's attached to the agenda.
Oh, I couldn't, I'm sorry, Terry,
It's on the town's website.
I went, yeah,
So you read it then?
no, I saw this,
Yeah.
but I couldn't sort, I didn't know that this was that, because the definition was so innocuous. I couldn't figure out that that was the subject. Law 27 of 12 of, I didn't know that this, I couldn't figure it out. I even called around and nobody was looking at it.
So taking in everything that's been said, I'd be in mind to table it indefinitely. Give us a chance to come back and look at it without a hard stop date. Try to clarify some of those issues. And Greg, it looks like you know, with what you're saying, you might have volunteered yourself for a committee spot. I mean, you're speaking too well back there, so you might want to just be careful.
That's just cluelessness breaking through. My apologies. I could have called. I tried to look it up and.
No, that's
It's complicated.
and it is. And if you don't, you know, like Linda said, she lived in the world for a long time. And still, huh? You lived in the world, you lived in the world of this for a while, and still in reading that. That is not, never stop laughing. That is not what I meant. And even it was difficult to find the exact nuts and bolts in there. So I can totally respect that, and I can totally understand that.
I complained, I'll help if you need help.
All right, so I would like to motion to table this resolution indefinitely.
Second that.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Motion carries. All right. Resolution 203, setting a public hearing on a local law to amend the town code section 220-33.2, agricultural protection overlay district, and seeker intent to declare lead agency.
I'll offer that.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 204, supporting Ontario County submission of a local government efficiency grant application to the New York Department of State and authorizing a memorandum of understanding with Ontario County to facilitate the Ontario County electronic contract and insurance life cycle management solution implementation project. Now that's a mouthful.
So moved. I'll second.
Okay, so with this is an opportunity for the town to participate, no cost to the town, participate in a countywide grant. And if we join in the end, it provides electronic contracting, and it's easier to track and keep an eye on those things. Okay, for an awful lot of words, that's what it is in a nutshell. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any?
You just repeat the motion second, sorry. Thank you.
All right, moved and seconded, and we had a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 205, support and authorization for the town of Canandaigua to apply to the 2022 New York State Consolidated Funding Application for the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation Environmental Protection Fund project for accessible park pathway connections and seeker determination of non-significance.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. 206, support for submission of an application to the Green Innovation Grant Program for water meter replacement and seeker type 2 action.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. 207, accepting the resignation of cemetery committee member Jim Johnson.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I would like to thank Jim for his being willing to serve, but
Staffing and other things made it difficult for him at this time to do that. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. 208, appointing cemetery committee member Mary Schneider.
I'll move the resolution.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 209, soil erosion and sediment control surety for 3568 County Road 16.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Resolution 210, authorization for town manager to contract with CPL for traffic analysis of the gateway of Canandaigua, including Brickyard Road.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Can I get a motion to approve meeting minutes from June 6th, 13th, 27th, 30th, and July 13th?
So moved.
I'll second.
Second. Third.
Okay. Any discussions or changes?
Why do we have 5 town board
Don't ask those
meetings?
Some questions are best not asked. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. Payment of the bills. Rebecca?
Abstract dated 6/30/2022, totaling $43,250. General fund $17,500, highway fund $20,750, water districts $5,000. Utility abstract dated 7/1/2022, totaling $45,501.21. General fund $26,395.35. Highway fund $14,719.23, and water districts $4,386.63. Town board abstract dated 7/18/2022, totaling $1,542,908.26. General fund $182,219.74. Highway fund $1,078,291.36. Capital projects $72,534.36. Lighting districts $1,091.66, and water districts $208,701.14.
771.
Sorry, yes,
So what you got?
that's exactly what my mind said. but my
Okay.
mouth-
We figured.
All right, can I get a motion to approve the bills?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, those are paid for another month. Last privilege of the floor. Would anybody like to be heard? Karen,
I would.
and you have now moved or changed your name from the first one. Okay,
I've done that a couple of times. I don't want to do it again.
okay, deal.
I'm still Karen, still live on Laurel Lane, and I want to end the meeting on a good note. So one of your notes here, one of the things you voted on was to apply for a grant for accessible pathways for the parks. And those that know me know that I preach accessibility. And I need you to know that accessibility doesn't just go for children. There are adults living in this community who need accessible means. And I'm proud of the way the town tries to do this. So on my phone, we have this wonderful new playground that's accessible for people of all abilities. But on my phone, I have a photograph that was sent to me of a woman sitting in a swing in Motion Junction. Next week, she'll be 102 years old. And she's got the biggest smile on her face that you could ever imagine. So keep on doing what we're doing here, because as Doug points out on a regular basis, what is the over 65 population, or the over 60, something like 30-some%? And it's, guess what? We're all getting old. We're all getting older. And we all, at some point in our life, will need to have this this type of accessibility. So I commend you for doing that. And I thank you. And this woman especially thanks you. And her picture will probably be in the newsletter one of these times.
All right, thank you very much, Karen.
Marion.
Yeah, I know this isn't appropriate to ask a question, but I did want to ask when I was mentioning my last privilege of the floor. I'd like it confirmed that our base water amount went up over 13%, and why were we all made aware of the fact that that amount was going up, and shouldn't we be made aware?
Well, at the organizational meeting minutes, we increased the minimum monthly bill back in December.
And it wasn't effective until what, April?
Well, we missed it on the first quarter. We did not increase it correctly on the water bills. So we did it on this quarter.
Okay, and 13%?
Yes. So long story short, when we purchase water from the city of Canandaigua, they expect a certain amount to be sold every year to meet the revenue they expect to cover their expenses. If the revenue doesn't cover the expenses, the following year, our rate typically goes up to cover those losses from the year before. That's how their losses become our expense, but that is how the agreement is written currently with the city of Canandaigua.
Okay, it would have been nice for everybody to know that. I mean, 13% is a significant jump. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Marion. Anyone else? All right, this takes us to other business. Doug, do you want to?
Other business. Speaking of water.
The water.
Perfect segue. We did talk about this in the finance committee. We have a request from a resident who is appealing their water bill. And Jim can give you the specific details, but essentially, I know that we talked about this in finance, so I won't go into a lot of detail of this, but essentially, Jim has authority under the water policy to do certain things, but the resident is appealing to the town board for a waiver of their water bill.
Correct. So the water meter, I did send out, I have not received back the report on the accuracy of the meter. I'm hoping soon, but it has been sent out as you asked me to, just to make sure it was correct. The meter itself, when we read the meter, we get either estimate or actual read. Okay, we don't necessarily, we don't care, but what I mean by that is like, if I get an actual read every quarter, to us, it means that the meter is reading correct. So the endpoint is telling us the correct number. I don't have an answer why the endpoint was not giving us a correct number, but it did it for 10 years. I printed out the report, the actual reading. Now the actual reading went up little by little by little, wasn't huge numbers. Then we started getting an estimated read. So for 2 quarters, we got an estimated read. So that there tells us that there's something wrong with the endpoint. Either the endpoint battery is dead, someone cut the wire. I mean, there's a couple things why they go wrong. When we went out to the property to replace the endpoint, the register, and the endpoint, we always take a reading and a photo of the register, which is the black part, or sometimes gray, on your meter, and it tells you how many gallons went through there. So for a while, a lot of water was being used in this property and not properly being recorded and sending him a bill of his actual usage. So the last actual read we received was for 100, as what was at 133. When we got the endpoint, it said 880, which is a difference of 660,000 gallons of water, which comes out to 6,660,000 gallons of water. So this property owner got a bill for $3,000 for the water that went through the meter. Yes, the endpoint did not work correctly, but the register on the brass water meter did register water that was consumed during this time that we have now found out because we went to replace the meter because we couldn't read it. is why he's asked, is where we came up with this number. So I was asked to waive the cost, and I said, I don't have the authority to waive that kind of money. That says, please write a letter to Doug Finch, town manager, explain why you request this, and we'll take it to the town board for discussion. So tonight, this, I believe the discussion is for you. And I don't think we'll have any answers tonight because we're gonna wait for the actual report to come back from the actual meter that was removed from the property, make sure that was added.
And I'll just jump in here. I did talk to the resident on Friday and then he emailed me today. I let him know that the discussion of finance was getting the meter tested to make sure that it's accurate. And I understood that, appreciated that. And he said we probably won't be able to have an answer because we're not expecting an answer. And he understood that. He just said, please, could I waive my any late fee? And I told him you had the authority to do that.
Correct.
Water policy. So I guess at this point for tonight, there's no real action for the town board to take until we get the results.
We wait and
back.
see what happens if it's accurate. If it's way off, then we have to adjust and figure out. If it's accurate, then that's a different story.
Correct.
And that was actually consumed.
When you're waiving late fees.
Yeah, we can waive late fees. I can do that once a year.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I did some calculations, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I was looking at the memo, a lot of information that Courtney's been working on this all the way through, so thanks to her. One of her memos said, when they found the problem, it was leaking 124 gallons an hour. Does that make sense? So by my calculations, that would be in a 24-hour day, that would be 2,975 gallons in a day. So that would equate out to about 223 days with a leak for 666,000.
What
gallons.
they, wait, yes, hold on. So what they outlined is after we replaced the meter with the new endpoint and cell endpoint, that's where he had another leak. And his
Okay.
hot water tank.
So this was the second.
This is the second, two different meters.
Oh,
But
okay.
fortunately, with our new technology,
Okay.
we get notified now of a leak. And myself, I sent out Mike Boyce and Courtney said, informed him of this leak in his house that went on, I say 3 days. or so.
Yeah.
Okay, so what, if we didn't have that technology, we would have never.
Yeah, so I had figured out it was about 101 hours. The second, it would have been about 101 hours, that second leak, so that's about 12,500 gallons. So,
Yeah, it was right around, yeah.
Yeah.
But the unknown is the estimate versus the actual.
Right.
Yeah.
So all those years, is he just getting like minimum bills?
Minimum bills, correct. And for us, Alan asked the question, like, don't you think someone should use more? I honestly don't know. And the reason is we don't know what people consume.
Well, and Mary just told us she's consumes them that never consumes over the minimum.
I'll be at your house, Mary, or what just a little, that new meter system that we've been putting in, and the board's been supporting us replacing this. You have to sign up for the ion water. You sign up for that, you get text messages or email that says you're leaking water for more than 24 hours. Find out why. We don't know why. Just go look so you don't have these big bills. And soon you'll be able to get temperature alerts when it's cold in your house. If you have to be, winter bird, it goes south. If the house is cold, you left your water on, you'll get an alert for that. So,
But just for clarification, that's only Canada consolidated.
it's only Canada consolidated, yes.
That's not everyone.
How do residents know if they have a new enough meter to sign up for ion water?
So we are working on the oldest or most gallons used right now. There's about 900 or 1,100 meters we gotta get through first. And then we'll start getting to the ones that are, say, 9 to 8 years of age, and then we'll go to 7 to 6.
So it's only the ones you're doing right now that can sign up for ion water.
Yeah, we're doing the ones that are the oldest right now because they're the least active.
But if you've got like a 5-year-old meter, that's not.
So we have a 5-year-old brass meter that has, say, 300,000 gallons through it. We'll just replace it again. We'll leave the brass.
I'm just wondering when they know they can sign up for the Ion water.
Oh, when you get a new meter, I'm sorry.
Okay, so it has to be a brand.
Yeah,
new-
not till you get a new.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we will bring this back next month and discuss it.
I'll just have everybody sign the 284 agreement before I leave tonight.
Yes. Yeah, we'll do that before we go to executive session.
Oh, you got it.
This takes us to the last privilege of the floor. Nobody online? Okay. At this time, we have an executive session requested by the town manager relating to the employment history of a particular individual, including the town manager and town attorney. Can I get a motion to enter executive session?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and we don't anticipate any action after,
Take that.
so.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. All right, can I get a
I'll make-
motion to adjourn the meeting?
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.